Alright, we are going to get into the different Werndl rifle designations, and also I'm going to talk about the calibers that were made for these guns, because when the caliber changes, the designation of the rifle changes, and this is what's highly confusing about collecting these guns. Because, like I said, the information is mostly foreign, in a foreign language. There's one website, Hungary.com, that lists it and gives a paragraph for the different designations. But I don't have a source, a written resource that gives me the exact information in context. There's always just bits and pieces. So let's start off by first reviewing. There are only 4 cartridges made for the Werndl rifle system. One is the Carbine Cartridge, and there are 3 different rifle calibers made. Okay, and this is where the confusion is. And that. So what we'll review is this. All right, first the calibers. The Carbine cartridge is an 11.15 by 36R, and basically it was a pistol cartridge. It goes into Rastgasser, them huge Montenegro pistols that you see. They're gigantic. They're made in Austria. It's a pistol cartridge, and it goes in most of the carbines. But there was a footnote. We'll go with that later. Okay. Next up is the original cartridge for this 1867 rifle. Was an 11.15 by 42. Okay, that was the original cartridge, 1867, when this rifle came out. Now, there is another cartridge called the 11.4 by 50, okay, which is also called the M73 cartridge. Now, when the original Werndl was redesigned, and this is an M73 style action, and I will show you the differences, they also changed the cartridge. So all the guns with this type of lock and action, okay, designated M73 guns, all right, use this other cartridge. Then in the end, finally, the Austrians decided to use the 11.15 by 58 cartridge. All right, and that was the final version. That came out in 1877. So 1867 was the first rifle cartridge. They did an assessment, and they changed not only the action, they modified that in 1873, but they also changed the cartridge, okay, and went on with both versions. And then in 1877, they developed another cartridge, 11.15 by 58, which they adopted in the final series of these guns. That explains the ammunition change, and a lot of the carbines never changed from the 11.15 by 36 little short cartridge. The 2 carbines I have are in that caliber. Okay? So, how does this affect the different model designations? Well, here's the weird thing about it. The first rifles, the 1867s, look like this. And there's going to be very little difference. Okay, these were the first design. They have like a side hammer lock, like a modified cap and ball or percussion cap lock that hits the rotary breech and sets the offset firing pin off. Okay. That is the original rifle, 1867. This rifle can have two other designations, 1867/74 or 1867/77. This particular gun is an 1867/77. Why is that? And the answer is, this is an 11.15 by 58R cartridge, okay? It fits right into this gun and closes. So, what does that mean? That means that this gun started off probably, okay, I'm not quite sure, is an 11.15 by 42. Now, to be a designated model 1867/74, they rechambered it for the 11.4 by 50. Then, in 1877, they rechambered it again to the 11.5 by 58. So the big confusing part of these guns is their designation changes as they are recalibrated. And you have to think of it like a .22 rifle that was made in .22 short. Then they decided, hey, we want to go with .22 long, recut the chamber, and .22 long rifle, third time around, recut the chamber again. Because all of these guns, the carbines and all these rifles, have a groove diameter of .446. Okay? So they never re-barreled the gun. All they did was cut the chamber deeper, and they changed the bullet shape and weight as they went along. Okay? That is how they improved the ballistics of the gun. And that was all they did. So the outward appearance of the gun from the 1867 to 67/74, 67/77, which this is, the outward appearance didn't change. Now, the only thing they would have changed, the chamber, and supposedly you can tell by the graduations on the sight. Supposedly the sight graduations were supposed to be changed to match the improved ammunition. But this does not necessarily happen, and it's mentioned when the person on the one website says they either changed the sights or they didn't. So you can't go by sight graduation differences because some of them obviously were just converted. Okay, probably during the war, as in World War I, because they're in a panic. Now this one has a date of 72, 1888, and all this other bizarre stuff. Which 72 falls into the range of when the 1867s were manufactured. Okay, it was 73 they started manufacturing the different gun. Okay? And this also, we'll cover that nomenclature. So, all the old 1867 style guns were probably converted to something else. Some of them were kept because of ammunition stores and weren't converted, but I have not seen one in that original caliber. And like I said, the only differences with these original 1867 rifles is, the outward appearance is the pistol grip, where you have the Jaeger style here on these two, that little metal thing, and then a plain one, like on this one. Those were the only two variations. And like I said, how the nomenclature changes is when they are rechambered. Okay? So there's three designations, 74, 77, and how they get that, the whole idea was the rear sight graduation was supposed to be replaced, the sight and what it was rechambered to is the only outward changes. And these sights are the same, so I'm not quite sure if they were changed or not. And there is a reference that says sometimes the sight weren't changed. So, what was the big physical change in these rifles? And that comes to the 1873 model. Now, obviously the rifle versions, I haven't seen many of them. Okay, very rarely do I see a rifle version 73 action. I've seen a few different carbines that are the 73 action. And what happened is in 1873 they redesigned the gun because these guns are kind of temperamental. They foul, and when this breech does not close all the way, you'll have a misfire. And that's because of buildup of dirt and debris in there, and probably the locks may have been weak or something about the locks they didn't like. So they redesigned the lock, which they took away this old-fashioned kind of side mount type action, and they try to get the camera in close and look at the differences. Okay, first thing is this old-fashioned side-mounted lock here, okay, was changed to where it's internal. Now the hammer is internal. The shape of the hammer, okay, was redesigned as compared to this. More, basically they changed it to be simpler to use. In other words, this hammer is kind of easier to grasp and cock because of the shape as compared to this one. All right, and if you notice, the mechanism in the back here was redesigned. This big flat spring, and this, they changed this portion of the rifle down in here as compared to here. Also a big change, not only did they change the shape of the hammer, they also changed the shape of the tab. They bent it up more. I don't know if you can see compared to this, where this is flat and this is bent up more, made it easier to open. Where this you have to reach down and flip it around, and as you can see it's contoured a little bit flatter. So that was addressed and changed. This is easier to operate. This you have to. So the shape of that thumb piece was changed. And the action is slightly different. You know, even in the rear here. But still a rotary breech with the offset firing pin. Okay, since I do not have a rifle version, we'll use the carbine version, but photographs I've seen, the other noticeable changes is the front nose cap here, where on the 1867 model it's like that, and on the 1873 they changed the front nose cap, and that will be just like that on the rifle version, a different style that locks on there. Okay, that's about the only outward differences. Now, when we get back to the 1873, there's an 18, let me double check my references. Yes, you had the 1873 model, and where this, now there's going to be two models. There's going to be an 1873/77 and just a plain old 1877 model. Because again, from 1873 to 1877, they decided to change the cartridge. So all the older guns that were chambered in the 11.4 by 50 or whatever that was, the 1873 cartridge, would be bored out, rechambered for the 1877 cartridge, and further production of this model in that caliber would then henceforth be in 1877. So you could have two identical looking guns, but the point's kind of moot because it have to go by serial numbers, which these don't have on some of them. When the gun was manufactured would be the difference between an 1873/77 or an 1877. So you see where the confusion comes in. And again, I don't know if they just have like Jaeger and straight handguards. I haven't found that many variations of this model. The only one I recently found was a sporterized one, and the guy wanted way too much for it, and I didn't buy it. But 1873-77 guns, rifles, full-size rifles, I don't find that much of. But that's your basic differences. So basically what I'm saying is you're only going to have two models. It would be this older model with the side handle, or side hammer, okay, style lock. As you can see from the top, there's a bit of a difference in the mechanism. The mechanism has been somewhat changed around in difference between the two of these here. So there's a top view. You see this spring here in this gun, which is not in this one, controls more when we take this apart, controls this locking of the friction for the rotary breech. So as you see, there was a bit of a difference, and that was about the only major engineering change, was from the 67 to 73. And you know, like I said, by 1886 they were getting the straight pulls in, and these guns were obsolete. So I hope that straightens out all the confusion, because it confused me for years. It took me many years to sort this out. Basically, you're going to have two physically or easily recognizable different models, and they'll have numerous designations according to the caliber. Okay, and that's the long and short of it. I hope that kind of helps out, and we'll talk more about determining caliber of your gun in another video. But that's how we got our different designations, and there's basically 3 cartridges that will go into the long rifles, and the carbine always had the one little short 11.15 by 36 millimeter cartridge for those. Now, like I said, the footnote, I'm sorry, I forgot. There was mentioned that they took these carbines and reamed them out for the longer cartridge, the 11.15 by 58, but I find that may be a misprint, much like that 11.4 for the M73. That may be a misprint, and then whatever the source was translated it over the years or kept saying it, and it's not correct. And the reason I find that hard to believe is, I'm sorry, I have to stop the camera. You cannot get, even if you ream that chamber out, you cannot get the 58 millimeter long cartridge into that action. So I doubt very much that the carbines were rechambered for that caliber. It won't fit in there. I'll go get the other one. Okay, and there's my 1867 carbine. As you see this thing, there's no way that longer bullets going in there. This one, they may have machined this back to allow that to get in there, but you see that's a little bit longer action, and that's not. So I doubt, they say that they were rechambered. I don't think so. But we'll have another closer look at the carbines in a separate video.